almost 70 degrees outside. That's a global warming for us. Anyway, I'm very upset because it's very possible that my bees are not going to survive this insanity. And actually nobody's bee is going to survive this because obviously they're not supposed to do this. They're not supposed to eat a lot of food right now. So they'll finish all their storages, and there's a lot of hectic attempts at trying to feed them sugar panties, which are like not concentrated sugar, but it may not work. Anyway, sorry, have to vent because I was just taking care of them. So I have two updates. I think that officially May 11 is deemed to be the end of the pandemic day, according to the Biden's administration. I don't expect that to change. So what does that mean? Well, two things are going to happen. So one, authorization of free access to vaccines, to testing, to treatments going to end, meaning it will be under insurance. What that will mean, if you have Medicare, I don't expect much will change. It's probably going to be completely covered. However, if you're on a private insurance, it's kind of hard to exactly predict what co-pays for all these treatments, COVID-related, going to be. We'll yet to be seen how that's going to play out. I do highly recommend you guys to stock up on tests while they're available. Remember, I sent everybody a link to free tests. You can just Google that, freecovidtests.gov. The government will send you 4 kits at no cost. So stock up. Yeah, I think you can ask for it every 4 weeks to get 4 more kits. So I'm planning on doing it for myself, just so I have extra tests. So that's one update. Second update, or I have 3 quick updates. So the second, it's a very interesting work from Australia. They identified a protein called, I think it's called LPP17. Don't quote me on an exact name. Basically, it's a protein in the lung that neutralizes virus in the extracellular space. So if the virus hasn't infected the cell, apparently this molecule, this naturally occurring receptor peptide, deactivates the virus. It just binds to it and removes it from circulation, or immune system kill it. So that probably explains why some people have never gotten COVID, because apparently some of those people who have not have very high concentration of this peptide. So most likely we're going to see a potential for a new therapeutic in upcoming couple of months. There are already some attempts at making molecules that mimic that peptide and then be injected, or I don't know. I don't think they will develop it as an oral agents. So that's a good news. Not so good news is there's about 40% increase in the heart attack risk for people under 35 in the last 24 months. And that's directly attributed to COVID. The absolute risk in mortality is also 40% increased from those heart attacks. Now, of course, that, young people don't really have a heart attacks all that frequent. So the absolute number of heart attacks increase is not very high. But if you think about this, it's thought to be that about 4% of young people who had COVID developed some cardiac complications. Most of them were mild, but about 20% of those 4% were actually heart attacks with some significant mortality attached. So it's another reminder that no matter how mild you think that the COVID is, it carries with it some serious risks for all ages. And so I just want to remind you that no matter what Biden administration says, the virus is still here. And so please be vigilant. Please try to minimize your personal risk. And as we discussed previously, if you decide to get the COVID boosters, by all means. But again, even it becomes more and more apparent that even patients with vaccines, so that those young people who did get vaccine, their mortality from heart attack was identical to those who did not get the vaccine. So bottom line is, it seems like it doesn't really matter. The vaccine prevents severe illness, but what happened with the heart attacks were microclots. And so that they often were not considered a severe illness until the person dropped dead from clotting. So there's a discrepancy in how some of this was assessed. So young people have very mild illness, but the problem is that even mild illness can lead to catastrophic complications in a very small proportion of patients. So with that, I think that's my time for me yapping. Let's see if oh, no questions. How come? Really? Empty chat? What's going on? Everybody's sleeping? Or you're all so excited that the weather is 70 degrees and you want to be outdoors? I can't blame you. I want to be outdoors too. Well, if there's no question, we can pass it on to Ellen. But all right. Question, shingles vax. I'm not sure what that means, but okay. What do you, what does that mean? Are you asking whether you should be getting shingles vaccine? Yeah, you better unmute yourself and speak up because I have no idea what the text, what you're trying to say. Sorry. Can't read your mind.
Hey, sorry, it's just that I'm trying to type and let you know that I have a question. I'm not a fast typer. Okay, I'm getting my second shingles shot next week. Do I get it on the same arm or do I need to switch? Remember that for COVID, that was something that you...
Oh, it's irrelevant. No,
it's irrelevant. Okay.
Even for COVID, it doesn't really matter. No, because you're not getting them, your timing of different shot is like 4 weeks at least, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Because of the timing. Now, if you were to get the, like, let's say you get a vaccine back to back, like a couple of days, I probably would rotate them in arms just to minimize localized reaction. But that localized reaction tends to last for, maybe 3 to 5 days, and usually after that, it tends to taper off. It's actually a good question because it's a very practical concern. And I think that original idea that somehow you have to get the COVID shots in different arms, like the ones that were 3 weeks apart, I think it was all nonsense. Sorry.
Okay.
I mean, back then they had no idea what to tell to public. There were a lot of unanswered, obvious questions, so they were like playing safe and all that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Sheila, I don't have any updates from last week on the Moderna vaccines and flu shots, so I don't think I can comment on that. Sorry, whatever I said, I didn't see anything new since. A reminder, there seemed to be a very small trace for Pfizer vaccine to cause the, in combination with flu shots, increased stroke in older adults, but I have not seen anything about Moderna. Okay. Younger adults, were there other contributing factors? So yeah, that's a good question. I did not really read into the data that far in. I'm presuming that the answer to that is probably yes, but it's nonetheless uptick in mortality just simply related to COVID because it's very easy to calculate. They simply look into the pre and post-COVID data, and there was a 40% increase in death related to heart attacks in young people. So it's not a coincidence, right? It's too big of a change in mortality over a very short period of time. You can't explain that by other comorbidities alone. So it's probably pre-existing comorbidities with COVID, but yeah, it's a good question, Mark. Thanks. I probably should look into that deeper. So if I find anything on that, I'll report next week. All right, is that it? That's all you have for today? Oh, I see Julie has hand. Julie, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question. Is there any correlation between symptoms of COVID and long-term complications from COVID? Like if someone has a mild case versus a more severe case?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually was interviewed by PBS today, and that's exactly the question that the reporter asked. I was kind of wondering, maybe you were the reporter, but
maybe.
So the answer is to this, no. And the answer is unfortunately no. We used to think that the severe illness was increasing risk of long COVID. That was only true pre-Omicron.
Okay.
The Delta and others. Since Omicron, all bets are off. The Omicron is milder, and we've seen some patients who had a couple of sniffles and then had severe long-term side effects months later. So it's seemingly all over the place. Generally, I think the severity of long COVID declining as we discussed. Okay. So I think uncoupling occurring simply because probably we're seeing less of it in general. And so we see more unusual stories and unusual links and unusual predisposing factors. Probably we're going to have more data in some of the more specific studies, but again, they're going to be delayed by many months, right? Because you're looking at the assessment of the new variant long COVID takes long.
Yeah, I was just curious because I got COVID for the first time about 3.5 weeks ago, and I've never been as sick. Like my 72-year-old parents had it and they were fine. They worked out without it, but I ended up in urgent care, and I wasn't expecting, just because I had avoided it for so long, I just wasn't expecting it to be as severe.
Can I ask a couple of personal questions? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
In public. So when was your last booster or last vaccine, if any?
Last vaccine was November, middle of November.
This past November,
2022.
That is unusual, I agree.
Yeah.
Because I would expect that shot should have been still very effective. Yeah, so yeah, this is just, Julie, that underlines what I just said.
Yeah.
We don't seem to have a good predictors. I mean, I know your health to some degree,
right,
but I wouldn't expect that.
I wasn't expecting it either, and it surprised me. And when I went to GW urgent care, the doctor that I saw there, because I thought I had a severe sore throat, and I thought it was strep throat. He said that he had he got COVID a month prior and had the same exact symptoms as me, and it took him a while to recover. Like, he said he was pretty sick, but I've just noticed, like, I was just curious because I wasn't expecting that. And so I'm now like curious of the correlation, if that's going to be a thing or if it's just.
No, it does not. So you may, I would say with Omicron, there's a lot less correlation with longevity of the COVID symptoms. So, but you still want to do the maximum anti-inflammatory support and all these other things, and maybe there's more and more data speaking strongly to microclotting. So I think going forward, I'll be putting most of my patients on a nattokinase or something similar, which is mild. I mean, we used to give low dose aspirin. I mean, that's a little because it's a little stronger. So, but yeah, I mean, you could probably even still take low dose nattokinase for a couple of weeks. It wouldn't be dangerous.
Yeah, I've upped my anti-inflammatories and taking the supplements that I had and found a couple, but it was just pretty surprising to me, at least.
Well, I'm glad you over it, and hopefully you're not going to have any serious or any consequences. So.
Yeah, so far it's just the annoying the dry cough.
Yeah, that can last for months. I had it for about 8 weeks after, so it'll eventually resolve. And acetylcysteine is very good for this.
Okay.
You can message me. Is it inhaled glutathione? I find is very effective.
Okay.
So we can set that up, but you'll need to get a nebulizer. Okay, so I'll take last question, okay? Because I see Janet is hinting to me that I should get out of the screen because Ellen was put on. So okay, so I'll answer Anne's question because actually it's important. So Anne, that is used to be correct. So 20+% of people had a long cognitive impairment after COVID. That was only true with Delta. With Omicron, that number is now way, way lower. So, and I'm assuming that this number will continue to decrease as more and more people get long-term immunity developed. So, so that's no longer a true statement. It was a true statement about a year ago or so. And with that, Ellen, thanks so much for being here. And we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you, you folks, and I love what you've done here. So I'm Ellen Goldsmith. I was here last a little while ago talking about Chinese medicine and food, and I did write this book on nutritional healing with Chinese medicine, and I really wrote it for everybody, my colleagues, my patients, and anybody who's interested in improving the quality and vitality of their health with food. So it's a book you can kind of drop in wherever you feel like it. You can learn about how to stock your kitchen or how to approach cooking, or you can learn about Chinese medicine, or you can learn about food, or you can try some recipes. But before I get going, I just want us to drop into our bodies a little bit, because food is about our bodies and food is about how we feel. So wherever you are, if you have enough room, I don't even have enough room here, but just let's take 3 deep breaths, just to kind of reaching our arms up, breathing in all the way, holding your breath at the top, and then just breathing out, kind of whole body breathing, just allowing your body to expand and release. And again, just breathing in. Really feeling your body, feeling the stretch, reaching your lungs, stretching your lungs by reaching your fingertips to the sky. And exhaling, just bringing that energy back down. And again, breathing in. The biggest way we interact with our environment is through our breath, and breathing out. And just sitting there for a minute, just kind of checking in with your body, just feeling your abdomen and your chest move as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Relaxing your shoulders. And just kind of check in and just see, how am I feeling right now? How's my energy? How's my gut? Do you have any rumblings in your gut? Are you hungry? Is it all quiet in there? Okay, so what I want to do today is just talk about how we can support our innate immunity. Our immune system, of course, is incredibly complex, as we well know. During these past few years, we've gotten a lot of information on that. But our innate immunity is something we're born with, so there is a genetic component to it. But it is something that we can nurture, or we can kind of not attack, but we can we can suppress it, so to speak. And major ways that we do that is lifestyle. I mean, it's not stress, because stress is just part of life. It's more how we interact with stress, our tools to manage stress, our capacity to transform it or to just work with it, actually. So there's the stress component, which can be, circumstantial, it can be emotional, it can be financial, it can be anything, right? It's our food, it's our exercise, it's the way, our use of substances, etc. But I kind of want to talk about our immune system as a garden, because it is complex and it has all of these different components to it. And today I want to focus on our food and digestion. And Dr. Kogan just spoke about, kind of upping our anti-inflammatories. Well, we can do that really simply by altering and changing our diet. And one of the biggest ways we can do that, I like to talk about removing the obstacle to cure. Okay, now if you're, generally healthy, we're not looking about curing, but we're kind of removing those obstacles that get in the way of our health and our vitality. And there are certain foods that do that. There are, of course, certain lifestyle practices that do that as well. And but one of the big things from a Chinese medicine point of view, it is what we eat. Absolutely, you are what you eat, but we are what we digest, more importantly. So I like to say that a food that's, if you have a family, you want to think like, oh, I can make one nice meal, everybody can eat it and it works for everybody. Well, it may not work for everybody. Like take garlic, for instance. Garlic is a substance we use a lot in this country when we cook, but garlic is actually not great for everybody. Some people eat garlic and feel bloated. It affects their digestion. It affects their mood, etc. So we want to understand that even though a food is, quote, good, it may not be right for us right now, or a food that was good for us now may not be great for us in the future. As we grow and develop, we change, and our needs change because our activities change, our digestive capacity changes. We call it digestive fire in Chinese medicine. And as we age, that digestive fire kind of wanes a little bit. So we like to keep it nice and vibrant. And there are certain foods and certain ways of eating that can inhibit that. So let's talk about those obstacles to cure. And I'll talk about it in terms of digestion. So I find are a couple of things that really seem to impact people and have can have an inhibitory effect, because the food that we eat, we need to digest, we need to be able to transform it so then we can absorb it, and that nourishment then nourishes our blood and goes throughout our body. So a couple of things that really get in the way of that. And so before I say that, why is digestion important in terms of the immune system? Well, the studies show that 80% of the immune system is located in the gut. We know that when our gut is unhealthy or not functioning well, our immunity is down. So we want to really nourish and support a really healthy gut. And that is the microbiota, the microorganisms in our digestive tract that, have beneficial bacteria and help to, ward off, foods or toxins, et cetera, that may, have a bad effect upon us or make us ill. So some things that get in the way of our digestion, and one of the big things, and this is like an American thing, people go, what are you talking about, is cold foods. And you may go, what do you mean? Well, cold is, it's cold, right? So your body has to utilize energy to warm it up. And cold foods are foods that we drink from the fridge. They're, the grab and go you get in the store. It's ice in our water. And I know you folks in DC, DC and South, it's like ice and water, ice and tea, ice and everything. It's like a really big deal. But from a Chinese medicine point of view, what you're doing is you're kind of like heating your, in the winter, you're heating your house with the windows open, or in the summer, you're air conditioning your house with the windows open. You're kind of doing two things at once. You're trying to cool your body down, but then your body has to generate a lot of heat to warm that cold up, because so the stomach acid can function and you can digest your food. So, and also people, like last time I talked about the thermal nature, like some people are hot, some people are cold. So if you run hot, you may want to cool yourself down with ice, but actually you're generating more heat in the body by having to break that down. Raw foods can be hard, and not that they're bad, they're great, but they can be hard to digest. So, we have to understand our digestive system. Where did that happen? Where are you guys? It just disappeared for a minute. Okay. So cold foods can be hard. Raw foods can be hard. They're not bad, but they can be hard. And again, depending on your digestive tract. A lot of spicy foods, of course, greasy foods, processed foods, ultra processed foods can be, hard on the system. Ultra processed foods don't have a lot of nourishment and nutrition. Spicy foods can be a little bit irritating and inflammatory in the body. So, we have to kind of regulate that. A little spice can be good because it can warm us up. It can add a lot of flavor and a lot of zest to what we're eating, but it also can, if you are a person who runs hot or gets easily irritable or frustrated, it can aggravate and it can have an inflammatory effect, which is when we want to support our immune system, we want an anti-inflammatory effect. That doesn't mean you don't use all those spices that you have in your kitchen cabinet, from cinnamon, dill, basil, oregano, thyme, sage, cloves, nutmeg, cardamom, all of those, turmeric, ginger, all those things that are warming and bring flavor. Those are really great. Those are not going to be inflammatory at all. Of course, sugar is like another super big culprit. And of course, it's hiding in plain sight in the grocery store. 56 different names of sugar, 80% of the food supply. So it's always better to just, eat those whole foods and add a little bit of honey or add a little bit of sugar to something instead of getting a little 6-ounce thing of yogurt with, 14 grams of sugar, which is close to 4 teaspoons of sugar in a little thing of yogurt. So sugar is huge. Of course, if you smoke or drink alcohol or smoke marijuana, those things can also depress our immunity and affect digestion because they're asking the kidney and liver to work in a lot of different ways. So, we want to kind of move these boulders to the side. So that our digestive system can function more effectively. So of course, that old story about, going to the sides of the grocery store the fruits and the vegetables, the grains, the beans, the nuts, the seeds, the dairy, if you can tolerate dairy, the meats and fish and all of that are all really great. And the more variety, the happier your gut. There is some talk about like eating 30 different plant-based foods per week. And that would be, quite something. You think it's a huge feat to accomplish, but actually it's quite easy, because if you make a soup, let's say you make a lentil soup and you put garlic in it, that's 1. Onions, that's 2. The lentils count, that's 3. Maybe put some carrots in, that's 4. Celery, that's 5. I like to throw some spinach or some kale in, really, thread it up a little, that's 6. So that's already in one dish, you have 6 of those, So I think if you, and any herb or spice you use counts as 1. So, you could kind of do a little game with yourself. I was doing it with my daughter and a friend who was staying with us, and we were counting how many points we had in a meal of fruits and vegetables. Because this, the microorganisms in your gut are so integral to your immunity. And so you want to have a really wide variety of foods. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Yes, so I wanted to highlight, and I'm going to put a link in the chat of this video I did for the State University of New York at Stony Brook on immunity. And it's going to have all this information, and it's also going to have a recipe that I have. It's like a mushroom broth. So you might have heard a lot of talk about mushrooms and their benefits for the immune system, and why is that? There are a lot of polysaccharides, terpenes, you can break down the micronutrients that seem to really have a positive impact on the immune system and immune modulation. But mushrooms, there's a man in Washington State, Paul Stamets. He's like the foremost mycologist, which is the mushroom expert. And of course, Paul Stamets, marvelous scientist character, and really thinks mushrooms are going to save the world. But they have this enormous power that have been used in traditional medicines throughout the world for thousands of years. Chinese medicine, we often use reishi mushroom or cordyceps. In the store, you can get maitake, or I brought some food here. Here's a shiitake mushroom. You can get these in the store. And a great way to get your mushrooms and store them is in a paper bag. Because I don't know about you, but there's sometimes, things get stuck in the back of the fridge and you're not quite sure, like, oh my gosh, has it gone bad? Well, if you store it in a paper bag, what it's going to do is it's going to dry up. And dried mushrooms are actually more wonderful than fresh mushrooms, because it concentrates all the flavor. And then you can soak it in warm water, and you can use that broth when you're making a soup. You can use it when you're making a stew, and it just brings what we call a lot of umami, or deep flavor. And if you don't eat meat and you eat more vegetarian, you need more umami, because a lot of times we get that from meat. So, and then you can just, button mushrooms. This is a cremini mushroom. It's a brown mushroom. Those are good. So I have this recipe that I'll put in the link where you can make this mushroom broth. And it's just a nice way, there's I'm old enough where, I remember my grandparents drinking consomme before they ate, or bouillon before they ate their dinner. And that warmth, which I talked about in Chinese medicine, we like that warm kind of soothing broth kind of thing, will help kind of stimulate your digestive juices. And it's really good. If you're not having much appetite, or you're kind of recovering from a cold, you want clear, like easy to digest foods, where broths are really good, porridges are really good. I like to make a real soupy, like today I made one with millet and some, this is kabochka squash, kind of knobby little squash here that has a marvelous sweet flavor. And I cooked it up like a half a cup of millet with 4 cups of water. And, and that makes it easy to digest. And you can cook those kind of porridges with chicken broth or vegetable. So I'm seeing some questions here. And then someone said, Irene said, I can never understood how one can have iced water with a hot meal. Well, I guess you don't drink iced water, Irene, but some people do. And I'm with you on that one. Oh, and then Dr. Kogan was talking about that we're going to have a virtual conference about mushrooms with Paul Stamets. He's fantastic. I really recommend if you can tune in to him. He's fantastic. Big question. Should all waters from soaked veggies be used in other foods? Irene, I don't know what you mean by soaked veggies. I mean, do you mean like the pot liquor that you get when you cook kale and you have that water afterwards? Definitely drink that. It's full of so much
When
nourishment.
you soak any vegetable, for whatever reason, they leave, or even the vegetables you cook in water. Can you all vegetables water that's left over after you cook them? Should you use that water?
Why not? I mean, you're going to get flavor, you're going to get nutrients that have, come out when the cooking. Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of called stock,
Okay.
And there's also a way that you can, save all those onion peels and the tops of leeks and the bottoms of carrots. And, I have friends who like stick all that stuff in a bag and put it in the freezer, and then they pull it out when they have a huge bag of it. And then they put it in a huge pot of water with some salt and bay leaf, maybe garlic or ginger. And then you have this beautiful broth that you can use time and time again. If you're making like a bean-based, plant-based soup, or even if you're making a meat-based broth. Pot liquor is the best. Jeanette, I'm with you. What else was I going to say? I was going to make a comment about Dr. Kogan talked about nattokinase. And nattokinase comes from actually a food. It's a fermented soybean called natto. And as my brother would call it, snotto. And I don't mean to gross you out, but it does have a kind of a slimy texture. And it's a traditional food that's eaten in Japan a lot of times for breakfast. And you mix it with a little bit of sliced scallion, grated daikon, a teeny bit of mustard, and soy sauce. And then you would mix it with rice. If you go to a Japanese restaurant, you can come and get a natto roll, which is like a sushi roll, but it has natto. And so natto is extraordinary, used a lot for reducing cholesterol, anti-inflammatory, et cetera. Super beneficial food. The story is it was discovered under some kind of huge mound of hay near the horses. They found some fermented soybeans. That's the mythology. So I don't know really the actuality of that, but questions about organic versus non-organic. Great question. So there's a little bit of a gray area in there, which is transitional. And these are farms and farmers that are not certified organic, which is a whole process you have to go through the USDA. Dear friend of mine has been in the organic food movement of organic food certified for years, and he doesn't even think the USDA qualifications are high enough. The standards are high enough. So if they're transitional, that means they're not using pesticides, herbicides, fungicides on their crops, but they're not yet able to say they are organic. I will buy from those people because, I live in Portland, Oregon, which we have an incredible farmers market. I hope wherever you are, you have a great farmers market. And you can always ask them, hey, do you spray with fungicides? Because the herbicides and fungicides are like not really great for us. And there are about 12 foods, the dirty dozen of these foods that you just don't want to buy if they're not organic, like strawberries and mushrooms and peaches, lettuces. These really absorb those pesticides. And we see that they have, they do have effect on our overall health and well-being. And, it's also something we have to think about in terms of planetary health and wellness, like Dr. Kogan was talking about his bees. These pesticides have a really negative impact on all life and on, our insects, these pollinators. And one story I'll just let you, that a developmental nutritionist once told me is that the problem with wheat these days is very much the glyphosates. and those are the Roundup that they spray. You know, it's easier to, first of all, it will be Roundup Ready wheat, but then when they harvest the wheat, what they'll do is they'll spray it with Roundup, so it'll kill it, because it's much easier to harvest dry wheat than wet wheat. So these glyphosates really have a problem on our gut in terms of intestinal permeability and health and wellness. Yes, thank you, Jeanette, for that EWG shopping guide organic. So you don't have to do all organic, but you do want to kind of make sure that you are at least trying as best you can to avoid those 12 foods that are just really absorb the pesticides and herbicides and stuff. Is nattokinase anticoagulant, blood thinning? Dr. Kogan, are you still here? Is that indeed the case? I wasn't.
That's exactly right. That's
Okay.
the whole point. Nattokinase is a mild blood thinner. There are some stronger ones like lumbrokinase, for example, but we use it quite often as a blood thinner. And we
Great.
use it in different settings, whether it clots are arterial or venous, it doesn't matter. It's a universal blood thinner. There's actually a belief that that's why Japan and China partially have such a lower risk of heart diseases, because it's a mild natural blood thinner. And it's
Wow, that's
consumed
great.
as a food.
Huh, yeah. I love it. There's sometimes I go to a Japanese restaurant and the waiter will go, "Are you sure?" And I say, "I'm absolutely sure." It's a really unusual food. I encourage you all to try it at least once. So yeah, I'm going to put the link here for my video, the video on immunity. And I have to say, I did this a few years ago, and I would never call it boost your immunity right now. I would call it support and enhance. So I've learned something, but the information I just presented is the same, kind of essentially. And then you can see a recipe for a mushroom immune broth, and it's quite delicious. I encourage you to use mushrooms in your cooking. I think that's it. Let's see here. I'm going to send that. Yeah. I did my 15 minutes. Okay. Thank you so much. It's really great to be with you. And now turn it over to my colleague, Angela.
Yeah, thank you. Two acupuncturists getting into the space. Hi, everybody. I'm just testing my sound. Is my sound okay? Okay, great.
You're good.
Hello, nice to see everybody. Some faces I know, some faces maybe I'm not familiar yet. Hope everybody's doing well today. So I actually prepared some sort of presentation with some body experience, but also with some kind of a talk on some somatic experiencing ideas. And I realized it's going to be a little bit too much talking. So maybe, Janet, sometime I can present on the talk part. So I can actually save that.
Absolutely.
For some other time. And I just feel like I don't want to talk too much. I want to do something really experiential without much explanation. More of just being turned inward. So I'm going to do some sort of meditation attunement from also from somatic experiencing, kind of my part of my work. But I don't have a script or anything, so I'll just go raw. So I just really changed my mind right now at the moment. Okay, so I hope everybody's sitting comfortably. You can just take a minute to check with your posture. And for this meditation, you want to, meditation practice, you want to sit actually as comfortable as possible. You don't have to sit upright. If you can recline, that would be even better. You can do it laying down. And I actually recommend, if you want to repeat it later, just by yourself, you could be in the most comfortable position as you can be. So yeah, just check with your body, with your sitting bones, with your spine, if you have enough support for your feet, for your back, for your neck. Just check with your shoulders if they're relaxed and kind of like open them up a little bit and drop. Yeah, check with your facial muscles. Maybe you can make some little like faces and release them. You can move your lower jaw and relax the TMJ joint, the lower jaw. And just take a nice breath. And before we close the eyes, yeah, take a look around, just slowly, without, you can move your neck as well, but just screen with your vision, the room, just looking, checking things around. We call it visual orientation, and it helps body feel safe and relax. So you just kind of engage the eyeball muscles, almost like you're feeling your eyeballs are moving. And when you're ready, just come to the neutral position and you can close your eyes. To settle a little bit more into the body and into sensing, place your right hand, the palm of right hand. Actually, sorry, you can open your eyes because you need to see this part. Just behind your back, the back of your neck. So your palm rests the edge of your skull. So with a couple of fingers on the bone and the rest is off the bone. And just make your palm soft, almost like you're holding a baby head. Just with a little support, no pressure. And just breathe. And place your second hand onto the chest. Left hand, someplace around the heart. And let's just take a minute, just sensing your hands, the touch, and breathing this soothing sensation, and breathing it in and spreading throughout the whole body. So with the intention with the right hand is for the neck muscles to feel supported and relaxed, so that our cranial nerves that are situated right under those muscles, they can kind of regulate themselves, get in a better state. And the intention of the left hand is to kind of orient to your breath, to the center of the heart. So you call it sometimes heart-centered breathing. So your body is like a star with a center in the heart. So breathing in through the heart all the way out, and breathing out through the heart all the way out, kind of into the hands of the stars. Just kind of keeping this sense, you can release your arms and just place them on your hips or on your thighs, where it feels comfortable. Just noticing the effect of that, what that touch produced on your felt sense, on your circulation, on your emotions, on your breath. So we can use this touch with our hands to soothe our nervous system and regulate the heart rhythm, electric activity of the heart. Whenever we we need a minute to do that. So now with the eyes closed, we're going to take it one level deeper, going into the relaxation. So we all know that our body consists of the single cells that are connected to each other, but they are also separate cells within the billions of those that have their cellular membranes and their like little own micro world inside. So we will try to sense our body just as an image of one single cell. And it can be kind of both. It can be in your natural body, kind of overlaid with this image of being a one single cell. So one single cell is suspended in a nice, very comfortable temperature fluid, like an ocean. The lighting is kind of dim, not too bright, but it's not dark either. And it's just floating, kind of very comfortably, safely suspended in the ocean. So what's important here is that the cell is very, very simple. Well, it's actually very complex, but compared to our body, we go on that simple level where there is no thoughts, there is no constructs, there is no stress of human life. So just for a change, we can function and feel ourselves as a single cell. Whatever cells it does is very simple. It's just breathing, taking nutrients in through the cell wall, which is permeable. So whatever needs to come in, comes in, come in. Whatever needs to go out, waste, just goes out. So there is almost like this rhythm pulsation of this life, which is very simple functioning. Just as much energy is produced in the cell as needed. So that's a state of rest while still functioning. There's nowhere to rush. There's nothing really to solve for now. Just breathe. And one important kind of sensing feature is that you can sense that you're separate, but at the same time, you're very comfortable in that environment. You have a cell wall, but it's not rigid, it's flexible, soft and pliable. It's kind of a nice boundary. It separates you, but it lets everything that needs to be in, it lets it in. And everything you don't need, it just goes out. So let's just take 3 more breaths as a cell. And start sensing your hands on your hips or in your legs and start moving them and rubbing, kind of coming back to your human body. Not that you left it, you just were in one of those cells of that beautiful human body. So slowly start sensing more, sensing your legs and arms, your back. Stretching, and whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. And again, just look around, orient yourself in the room. And you can take this meditation, breathing one cell kind of awareness practice whenever you really need deep rest. So that's where we can finish the practice and give it back to Janet, Misha. If there are more questions. Well, I guess cell have difficulty speaking, right? The one cell state has difficulty speaking. Hi, Janet, Misha, any announcements?
Misha has left early. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody. Have a great week.
I guess I put everybody in deep sleep.
It was beautiful. It was very good meditation.
Okay, I will see you next time.
Okay.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right. We have wonderful guests for you next week. I don't have them in front of me, but as you know, we bring the goods. So you guys have a beautiful weekend. I don't know what the weather's like up there, but it's kind of kooky down here in South Carolina. So stay warm or stay cold. Or actually, if Ellen says stay warm, right, Ellen?
You know, it's moderate here, so we're kind of in between.
We definitely should stay warm inside from Chinese medicine perspective.
Yes, from a Chinese medicine perspective, stay warm inside, but don't get too hot.
Right.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much. Great to meet you, Angela.
Likewise.
Bye.
Bye.